Hey everybody, welcome back. This is tutorial number 7 in the series of developing your email machine. So we have some really important topics to cover today. First one is we're going to talk about do until loops. In a previous tutorial we talked about other kinds of loops, including for each. Today's tutorial we're going to talk about do until loops. We'll also continue to develop that VBA code. We'll talk about activate and active cell. Another really important method that is included in VBA, and we're going to talk about that today, is offset. So this way you'll be able to send all of your emails to everybody on your list. So again, we're going to talk about the offset method. We'll talk about checking the value of a variable. We'll show you exactly how to do that. We'll talk about the send property in VBA and how to send the email. Checkboxes. We'll also talk about how you can ask your user, do they want to send one email at a time, or do they want to auto send 1,000,000 emails in one shot? So we'll show you how to develop that. So as a bonus tip, we're also going to show you how to prevent your users from accidentally sending 1,000,000 emails. If you like today's tutorial, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and give us a big thumbs up. It really helps the YouTube algorithm. And without further ado, let's get started. So this is where we left off. We have our tool right here. Our tool will send an email. It will, if we press this button, it will go ahead and send an email to the people on this list. However, the way it is set up right now, it is only going to be sending to this first person. Right now, it would only send to the person who is on sheet 3, range A2. So you can see that. Let me just pull this to the side, and you will see it will, this is sheet 3, which is assignment by staff, sheet 3, range 2, then B2, C2. We want to not only be able to send to this person, but what we'd like to do is be able to send it to everybody on this list. So how do we do that? So in a previous video we talked about looping, and we said that there are different kinds of loops. In the last looping that we talked about was for each. And what that was is that meant for each, for example, in our example was for each sheet in the collection of sheets, we wanted something to happen. We wanted all of the sheets to become visible or hidden, or very hidden. For our purposes, though, we're going to be using a different kind of loop. Now, what we're going to want to do is, what we really want Excel to do is go through all of the cells, all of the names in this column, and we want Excel to send an email to every one of these people in this column and just keep going until you hit a blank cell. So basically we want it to do something until it hits the blank cell. And miraculously and so intelligently, this type of loop is called a do until loop. Do until. So for the do until, we're going to begin right over here. So what we want something to happen, we want to be able to send this email, but many times. So let's just go ahead and let's put the term, the phrase, do until. And what we really want to happen is we want this to do until it hits a blank cell. So it's going to be do until, and then once it gets to the bottom of the loop, we're going to put the loop right over here. So it's going to do this, keep looping, until it hits a blank cell. So we're going to begin by saying we want it to begin here, right, on the first name, which is A2. We really want Excel, so the active cell right here, wherever I click my cursor, that's the active cell at the moment. This is the active cell. Active sheet, active cell. So A2 right now is the active cell, and then it's going to go to A3, A4, A5, A6, and it's going to keep going and going until it hits an active cell, but the active cell is blank. So we're going to say do until active cell dot value equals blank. But we also need to be able to tell Excel where to begin. So outside, so we have the do until loop right over here, but we want Excel, we want to tell Excel where to begin. Where is the first active cell in the sheet? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tell Excel which sheet will be the active sheet. So assignments by staff is sheet 3. So we're going to say sheet 3 dot activate, and then we're going to say we want you to begin at sheet 3, range A2. So this is where we want it to begin. Range A2 dot activate. So now Excel knows I'm going to begin here. The first active cell is going to be on this sheet in this cell. Sheet 3, range or cell A2 is where I begin. And so what we want Excel to do now is we want to plug in all of this information. So we're going to cut that, and we're going to move it down to inside the loop. We're going to move it right under here. Now that we've moved all of this, all of the parameters, all of the information, we need to move one more thing. We're going to move this line inside the do until. We're going to place it right above the width. This is going to create the email each time. Okay, so let's now run the code. We see that our code is right here. We're going to begin in A2. This is our active cell. And now I'm going to step through it with F8. Let's see if it works. Okay, I'm going to go back. And remember, Jack Ackert. Okay, and let's do it again. And look what's happening. It just keeps creating an email with Jack Ackert. So now we have 3 emails with Jack Ackert. And if you look here, this is still the active cell. What we want Excel to do is we want Excel to use this as the active cell, then after it sends the email, go down the list. Make A3 the active cell. Then after it sends the email, make A4 the active cell. Then A5. And each time it goes down, we want Excel to also look, and because we want it to do until the active cell is blank. We want it to keep sending the emails until it hits a blank cell in the column. How do we do that? We're going to be using another property called offset. Offset means we're going to look at the active cell, and after it's done, offset it by one column or one row, and then go to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So let's go ahead, let's stop this code here, and let's talk about what offset really means. Let's go to a quick presentation I put together for you. So let's take a look at what the offset property in VBA does and really is. So offset means you are going to go one or more columns or rows away from the active cell, the cell on which you clicked. And this is very similar to VLOOKUP. If you're familiar with VLOOKUP, you're going to say, well, this is like VLOOKUP, except it is more powerful, as you will see. So what I really want to do is I want to understand how I can get information across a row. So let's say I have Jack Ackert. I click Jack Ackert's name, and now this is the active cell. Okay, so my cursor clicked Jack Ackert, so B2 is now the active cell in Excel. Now, what I really want to do though is I really want to I don't want to click the email, but I want to get the email address of Jack Ackert, which is one offset cell to the right of the active cell. So it's offset by one column to the right of the active cell, and that is the email address. And offset by two columns to the right is the country. Now here's a trick that you can only do in VBA, you can't do in Excel and with VLOOKUP. If I want to reference the column to the left of the active cell, I can do that as well. So let's go take a look. How would we write this in VBA? So the active cell in VBA is written as just active cell.value. And we're going to go through that, of course. Now, how do we write the email address? How do I write that in VBA code? I want not the active cell, but I want the cell offset by one to the right of the active cell. And this is how we would write it. Active cell dot offset in parentheses 0, 1 dot value. The first number refers to the row this way. I am not offsetting by anything in terms of row for this example. I'm not offsetting by anything. So it's still the same row. So I want to keep that as 0. But what I am offsetting is by the column. And if I want to go 2 values or 2 columns to the right, I can do that as well. And I would write it like this. Active cell dot offset in parentheses 0, 2 dot value. And if I wanted the cell that is to the left, it would be written as -1. So active cell dot offset, again in parentheses, always in parentheses, 0, comma, -1. And if I wanted to offset by one row, I would change this to a 1. And again, I could offset by 1 or more, or -1 or less. Now, let's head back to the tutorial and the VBA editor. Now that you've seen what offset means, what we really want to do is we want to begin here with the active cell, and then we want to offset. We want to begin here. We want to also use the offset of A2. The offset by 1 would be B2. So let's take a look at the code. Let's see how we can change it so it will loop and it will go down the list and also going across to get the information. So since we're beginning with A2, we are going to, and that's the staff, we're going to go back to the code right here, and this is no longer going to be called sheet 3A2. We're going to refer to this as the active cell. So we're going to type in active cell dot value. This is the active cell. The staff email, that's the email name of this person, that is offset by 1. So instead of saying sheet 3 range B2, we're going to say it's the active cell dot offset parentheses 0, 1 dot value. So as you can see, this would be the active cell. This would be the active cell offset row by 1. And as we did in the past, let's just copy some of this code so we can save some time. The staff CC would be offset by row by 2 columns. So let's make this a 2. And then the school would be 3. Remember, this is the active cell. This would be offset 1, offset 2, offset 3. Now let's take a look. Now let's take a look at class. So class would also be offset, but it would be offset by 4. And the teaching assignment would be offset by 5. So now if we run the code, we should get all of the information. And let's take a look now. Let's see if we run this code, if it moves. So let's begin. Let's go through it. And what we can do, just to check to see if it's offset by the right amount, if we put our cursor over value, it'll tell us what the value is behind it. And you can see it worked flawlessly. It is pulling the information that's offset by 1 column, 2, all the way up to 5 columns away from the active cell, which is A2. So let's continue. And it's going to loop. Let's take a look at the email that was just created. So it should go now to Richard Allen. And take a look. Did it go to Richard Allen? No, it did not. It's still at the first person. It's still at Jack Ackert. So we've retrieved information going across, but now at the end of the loop, we want the offset not only to be going this way, now we want to offset the active cell, meaning it goes down, offset by 1 row. So how do we do that? So to do that, let's first stop the code. We're not going to continue walking through it. Let's stop here. Reset. Before it loops at the end of the end with, but before it loops, meaning it goes back, what we want to do is we want to say the active cell needs to be, the new active cell needs to be offset by the old active cell by 1 row. Active cell dot offset 1 row, so the first number is the row, so we're going to offset by 1, no column, close parentheses, and activate. What this will do is this will make the new cell go down 1 row. Now let's try it. Let's go back to the code, let's walk through it, let's see if it works. Walking through it. Okay, so the first name is correct, it's Jack Ackert. The next time it should go to Richard Allen. It should activate Richard Allen. And let's see, before it even creates the email, let's see the name. And you can see, and look, it did highlight, I'm not going to touch it, but it did highlight the next email, the next person, and it did go down by 1. And there you go. So I'm going to click away from this. So you can see Richard Allen, Susan 5678 is the CC'd supervisor. And let's see if that works. You can see that did in fact work correctly. What is happening here is Excel is going to continue until it meets the condition. It will keep looping forever until it meets the condition. What's the condition? Until the active cell is empty. So I'm going to, so right here we have it is still active. I'm going to stop this code. I'm going to close out this email. And let's start it again, except I'm going to add a row, which is going to create a blank. The code should stop once it hits this blank. So let's try it. So let's step through the code and see if it stops after the 3rd email. Okay, so now it's creating the first email. The second email. See, it keeps looping. And now it's creating the 3rd email. And let's see if it goes to the end or it continues to loop. If it goes to the end sub, then it's done. There you go. And it went to the end sub because the condition was met. Do until active cell equals blank or null. And since it hit a cell and the cell value is blank, it now stopped. So we're going to stop the code now. And let's close out these emails. And so that is how we create a tool that will keep going until it can no longer go. So I'm going to remove that blank row. So this is how we create an email tool that can loop through all of the information, send different emails to different people, CCing different people. You cannot do this with mail merge. Now, what if I want to automatically send the emails to everybody? So this one you want to be really cautious, because this will really send the magic word, or the property that will send it is this dot send. Just put it within the with statement right here. Remember, if you don't want to send it, you can comment it out. And again, when you comment something out, the computer doesn't read it. One thing that you can do is you can create your tool, and I already put the button in here. So you can click here, and it will, you can have the tool create the emails, and then you click send, or it will send it for you. How do we do this? How do we select? So now I'm going to, let me show you how I created this. So to create a check mark, you go to Developer, Insert, and you're going to use this checkbox. So then I create a checkbox. I can change the text here, but most importantly, I'm going to right-click on that checkbox. I'm going to go to Format Control, and I can use 3D shading if I want to make it look a little nicer. But the most important thing is I want to attach it to a cell. So I am going to pick a cell on this page that nobody will see. I'm going to say I want it to be in P11. So I'm using P11. So now watch. I am going to now pick here, and you can see I am using this check mark to change P11 to true and false. Now that's very important. So later on we can go in and we can hide all of this information. But what I like to do is I like to also label what this would mean. So this is auto send. So now I can remember. I've already created, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to also delete this. Now I've already created one here for you. And you can see this one is connected to 017 right over here. I'll highlight it for you so you can see that. And look, every time I check, it changes true and false, auto send. And that's the label. Now that's very important, because now we're going to go back to the code. Let's go back to the code. And we're going to use an if-then statement. The sheet that we were on, or we are on, main, is sheet 5. So we're going to use an if-then statement, and you can use an if-then statement within the with statement. So we're going to say if sheet 5 dot range let's go back. What number was that? That was, this is the one that's connected. It is 017. O17. Remember, it's an O and not a number, not the 0. If sheet 5 range 17, I could say equals true. If it equals true, then send. But when you're creating a simple if-then statement, you already assume you mean true. So we can remove this. And now we can say if sheet 5 range 017, and that automatically by default means if it's true, then send. If it's not true, it won't go to send. So let's try this. We're not going, right now it's false. So let's see if it sends the email. And let's put our cursor over here. And it says false. You see that? So it is not going to send it. It's going to loop back. So it didn't send it. So let's stop the code. Click no. Now let's go back again. Now let's change it to true. So notice now it's true right over here. Now let's see if it sends the email again. Now let's see. Is it true? It says true. So now it sent it. And now it loops back. So this is how you can send multiple emails. You can control whether something is going to be auto-send or not. And this is essentially how you create an email tool that can send 1 million emails customized to multiple people. Now, as a bonus, because you really want to prevent from accidentally auto-sending 1 million emails, what I like to do is I like to, at the end of the loop, but before it ends the sub, change this back to false. So this way you won't accidentally send anything. So we're going to go back now, and this is sheet 517. So we're going to put over here, and this is kind of a reset. So this, I'm going to put a note in here to myself, a comment, reset to not auto send. And this is how we do it. Sheet 5 range 017 dot value equals false. So this means once it gets to the end of the loop, it will automatically unselect this. So we can go ahead and we can try that. Let's go back to staff, and let's just only send one, and this will create the space, because it'll be in the active cell will have hit a null empty cell. And right now, let's see, it is now set to true. After it sends this email, it'll stop, and then it will reset to false. Let's see if that works. So now it's sending, and let's see. And you can see it unselected. So this is a way that it forces the user to always actively say, yes, I want to auto send, because you don't want to accidentally send thousands of emails to people that you may not want to send. I've used this tool thousands of times to send literally thousands and thousands and thousands of emails across New York City schools, and we've never had a problem, partially because I build in these safety features so the next person can't automatically accidentally send many emails. So in the next video, we'll show you some more tips on how you can make this tool even better.